What's up, everybody? My name is Logan, and today we're going to talk all about humidifiers. There are 4 different types of humidifiers that you should understand a little bit about how they function and how they differ before you purchase a humidifier for your grow setup. You've got ultrasonic humidifiers, impeller humidifiers, steam humidifiers, and evaporative humidifiers. There's pros and cons to each, and we'll talk about that next. An ultrasonic humidifier uses a high frequency sound wave to create tiny little droplets of water, and they are kind of shot upwards and it becomes a fine mist. You can find cool mist ultrasonic humidifiers as well as warm mist ultrasonic humidifiers. However, they function the same. Some of the pros are that they're practically silent because there's no fan actually blowing that mist out, at least in most units. There's no moving parts really, and not too many places that can fail besides the portion that does the ultrasonicness, I guess. They do a good job in small spaces in my experience, but that's kind of where the pros end. I don't really recommend ultrasonic humidifiers, and the reason why is important to start with here. You really want to control the humidity of your lung room, not your tent, though you can get by in a pinch by reducing the exhaust fan output, so not pulling air out quite as fast so that it lingers around in your tent, and then using a smaller humidifier inside the tent. But that's just not the way you really want to do it. It's not going to be as consistent as if you had the humidifier outside of the tent in what we call the lung room, and size your humidifier properly to maintain the humidity of that lung room. That's what we're going to be shooting for. And in that kind of situation, ultrasonic humidifiers just don't seem to put off enough humidity unless you get a really large one, I guess. I've never had one that large, but they also tend to clog up. What I mean by that is that the humidifier itself doesn't clog up. However, it's going to disperse any minerals in your water if you're using tap water into that fine mist that it creates. And that's going to coat your walls, it's going to coat everything, anything that it lands on. I learned this the hard way in my first tent, a 3x3 VivoSun tent, when I practically had no airflow all of a sudden. I noticed my temperatures were getting way higher than I expected, and it's because the sediment in my water, probably calcium buildup like a white powder, it had completely clogged the pre-filter on my carbon filter. So carbon filters, I'll put a picture up here just so you have a reference. They typically have a white sleeve that goes over them as a pre-filter to capture things like this so that it doesn't wreck your expensive carbon, your activated carbon in there right away. So that was no bueno, my temperatures were not ideal, the plant wasn't as happy as I could be, and now I have a nasty film all over everything. Perhaps if you have a RO system or something like that at home, you might consider using an ultrasonic humidifier, especially if they make larger ones that would fit your lung room. Me personally, though, it's not my first choice, though I have had some of them and I might have them again for like houseplants and things because they're kind of nice the way they add humidity to the area they're surrounding with the mist. That's about all there is to say about the ultrasonic humidifier. You want to make sure you're using distilled water or you're prepared for that buildup, which really isn't ideal. The next type of humidifier is the impeller style humidifier. I'm not sure I've ever actually seen one of these in person. I just learned about it when I was researching types of humidifiers to make sure I'm not missing any. Impeller style humidifiers use a rotating disc, kind of flings water into a diffuser, and the diffuser makes that into a mist. So similarly to ultrasonic, you've got cool mist and warm mist impeller humidifiers. And similarly, they're typically pretty quiet because there's not a fan, there's just that diffuser that shoots it off into the air. And also similar to the ultrasonic humidifier, you're going to have the same problem with buildup. It's going to shoot any minerals in your water up into the air. It's going to coat everything. I also don't know how big of a impeller style humidifier they really make. So that would be something to look into. Maybe I'll drop a little text box or something right here. Are there humidifiers large enough for a average sized bedroom? Well, you from the future knows, but I'm actually not sure. The next type of humidifier we'll talk about is a steam humidifier. These are pretty cool, and I really didn't know it was a thing, or at least I've never used them. Steam humidifiers work just like they sound. It boils the water and creates steam, or at least warms it up enough to create steam, and then it blows a fan to get that steam out there. The pros are that it's going to raise the humidity really quickly. Think of a sauna. It's also going to add temperature to the air, which can be a good thing depending on your climate. And when it comes to choosing a humidifier or even figuring out if you need one, your climate is going to be what determines that. If you're living, in a rainforest where it's just always 80% humidity and just never drops, you probably don't need a humidifier. You're always going to be using a dehumidifier. Here in Minnesota, I'm not really sure. I mean, I've used both throughout the grows that I have done in Minnesota. So we're probably going to need both here. The temperature and humidity both vary quite a bit throughout the year, especially outside, but also in your home where you're going to be growing, probably. Another thing to mention about the steam humidifiers is that they are more energy hungry. They have a higher energy consumption, they use more power, and that's just because it's got to heat the water up to make the steam. Whereas the other ones, they use power, but it's minimal in comparison. So that's what there is to know about the evaporative. No. Come on, baby. Words. Where are you? Where are you? Steam humidifiers. That's what there is to know about the steam humidifiers. Finally, you have the evaporative style humidifiers. I don't want to say it's the best, but out of what I've tried, which is just the ultrasonic, which I think I can safely assume is very similar to the impeller style humidifiers, the evaporative humidifiers do a much better job at putting humidity out into a larger space. What an evaporative humidifier is basically a basin of water, and there's a wick in the center of it that wicks up that water, and then there's a fan that blows over, or kind of blows above, but it blows that humidity off of the wick. Now, it seems like black magic. I'm not sure exactly how this works, but it really does increase the humidity a lot. And I can get to 60% humidity, like in the case of drying, very quickly. And it's pretty rare I'm ever actually wanting my humidity higher than that, besides like seedlings in the beginning. And that's a good example of when you might be able to just not use a carbon filter and then reduce, if you can dim your exhaust fan down, you might put it on low, so there's still air exchange, but it's slower, allowing that humidity to build up just a little bit more. Depends on the size of your fan and how quickly it's circulating the full air in your tent, but something to consider. The cons, though, to an evaporative humidifier is that you have to replace that wick. That's a major con. Excuse me. They're not overly expensive, but they're not cheap. I want to say it's maybe like $20-$30 for the air care replacement wicks. And I typically get like an off-brand one that's compatible that reduces that by about 50%. So it's like 2 for 1 when I got the cheaper brand names. And they seem to work just as well, though I haven't really compared or paid attention to see like the lifetime generic brands versus, the air care brand, which is more expensive. When you're looking to get a humidifier, regardless of what style you get, you want to kind of oversize it for your room because you want to control that humidity even if the doors are open, even if your exhaust fan is pushing air out of the room maybe, so you kind of want to oversize compared to your lung room. I'll have to look and see. I'm not really sure what size I have compared to what I've used it in, but it's been adequate, so I would just recommend going bigger than you need. They're not overly expensive humidifiers. You might be dropping a couple $100 between the humidifier and the dehumidifier to get something big enough for your lung room. And I know that can be difficult to justify compared to getting a small one you could put in your tent. But I promise to you, believe me, it's not going to do as good of a job if you have a humidifier or a dehumidifier in the tent. It might even do a terrible job. I might go so far as to say that, especially if your exhaust fan is going pretty quick or if you've got slightly oversized exhaust fan, which isn't going to hurt anything, but it is going to make the temperature and humidity inside your tent that much more close to the air outside of the tent, the humidity and temperature outside of the tent. They're going to be very similar. The faster your fan spins, if you have a very slow fan that's just barely circulating air, the temperature and the humidity is going to build up inside the tent from the plant transpiring, kind of sweating, you can think of it as. Also from the heat of your lights and any electronics you have in there that generates heat. So if you're not exhausting it quick enough, both of those are going to build up. So that's something to consider. That's about all there is to say about humidifiers. I don't really have brands to recommend. There's a lot of brands that look almost identical. I don't really have sizes to recommend. You'll just want to look up, what size. Maybe I'll put a chart here if I can find a nice one. what size humidifier for what size room. And if it's a chart with like rows increasing in room size, I would go up a room size compared to what you actually have so that you aren't underpowered with your humidifier. There's actually a couple closing thoughts I can think of, at least two of them. One is that you want to make sure you have a humidifier, but also dehumidifier, and we'll do a separate video on those, even though they're pretty simple in comparison. You want to make sure that when you plug them in, they turn on. So you're going to want to watch a video or something on the humidifier you're looking at to make sure this is the case. I guess you don't always have to have that as the case, but this is why. If you're using an Inkbird controller or a different style controller that's measuring the humidity to send signals to your humidifier or dehumidifier to power them on, typically it's just an outlet. I've described this in the past. Outlet A, outlet B. When the humidity is too low, it turns on outlet A. When the humidity is too high, it turns on outlet B. Well, if you have one of these devices or machines that you need to press power on even when it's plugged into the wall, and then maybe press a button to start it, when the controller sends power to that outlet, it's not going to automatically start. It completely defeats the automation that you had otherwise planned. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. I know many of us aren't thinking about drying yet. If this is your first time, you're concerned with veg and getting your seedlings to germinate and what kind of medium you're going to use, what kind of light. There's so many things probably going through your head right now. But you want to think ahead a little bit. And this is why I did the full grow cycle video. So you have a big picture, even if it's just a brief big picture view of what it's going to look like. Oversize your humidifier and dehumidifier, but also think about, are you going to use a controller to keep both of them going together to keep it at that 60%? If you are, then make sure they turn on when you plug it in for the reasons I just stated. The other thing I was thinking, I'm not sure it's coming to me. Honestly, can't remember what the other thing I was thinking is, but I thought of another one while trying to think of that thing I was thinking about. You want to make sure you keep your humidifiers and your dehumidifiers clean. So my humidifier is an evaporative style humidifier. It's an air care something. Works really well for me. I don't want to say it was too expensive. I might post the exact one that I use up so you can just get an idea. And I use it for my lung room, so it doesn't matter what size tent you have in that lung room. My lung rooms were just about the size of an average bedroom. In every place I've had them, it's usually the master bedroom, so that's how it goes. You want to make sure you keep them clean. I've neglected them before, especially if they get stagnant and not turned on, right? If the fan's not spinning because the humidity's too high or you've just turned the power off, but it's still filled with water, that wick will get moldy and disgusting. I mean, it's really nasty and it happens quickly. Not only is this awful to be breathing in all the time and probably causing allergy problems for people who have allergies real bad, I'm fortunate not to. You also just don't want to be spreading that all over, those spores germinating and infecting your filter, your wick, could potentially be something you don't want your plants to have either, right? So it's just all around a bad thing. And it also reduces the life of your wick. They're kind of expensive, so you want to keep that baby clean. That's pretty much all I have for you today regarding humidifiers. If you're from Minnesota, go ahead and check out the Facebook group I'll have linked down in the description, Minnesota Growers Co-op. Again, I don't run this, but I do partake in conversation there. I just posted practically a blog article about enzymes and what I had learned about them just recently. Very interesting. They're doing giveaways at certain amounts of members. It's pretty newly formed because of Minnesota's legalization going legal August 1st, very soon. And our next giveaway is at 2,000 members. We just hit 1,000 not too long ago, and I'm looking forward to that giveaway. They've not only done seeds, but they've also done earth boxes and a couple of different kits like that, I do believe. So check that out. There's not too many people partaking in the giveaways, so honestly, your chances of winning are pretty high. I failed to get in on the 1,000 member giveaway because I didn't pay attention to the instructions. And I looked, and there was something like 120 people that joined the giveaway, and I think there was three different prizes, first, second, and third. So those are pretty good odds to just get some free stuff, whether it's good genetics or a grow box. I mean, I'd take any of those prizes for sure. Free is free. But there's also good discussion there. You see a lot of new people asking new questions, which might be something you can relate to and then see the answer. But also some veterans. Today I saw someone posting there who was coming from Oregon, just moved to Minnesota, had been growing and owning recreational facilities for like 20 years. Definitely a treasure to have if you were to ask them a question and hopefully get a response. those are the kind of people you really want to learn from, is people who have done it before, and the other states are going to be a great source of that. People who have had it legal for a decade, California, Oregon, these kind of places. So check that out. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that. I've been keeping it short and sweet. I've got a lot going on in my own life. I'm about to move into a different house September 1st, so that's going to be a little tricky with these videos. Just a whole lot going on, but I am excited for the future. I've got a lot coming up. I'm going to be discussing a different grow style that I'm actually going to be doing on our first run here. I'll make a video all about that. It's going to be the build a soil way in a living soil, side by side with the Fox Farms and the nutrients they provide. Just kind of seeing how they compare and the struggles I have with each. Should be really interesting. For now, this is goodbye. Until next time. Bye.